It's not like Helmut Marko to make a provocative and bold statement in the press now, is it? No, that's not him. Surely that must be his brother who's doing that. But Dr. Marko has come out and said that despite the dominance of McLaren in Australia in terms of the pace that we saw, where they were pulling away from Max Verstappen at a good second a lap in the mid part of that race, something that Marko did predict, in fairness, before the race even started. He said that Red Bull can catch McLaren up in 5 races, which that tells us quite a bit. They are not really going to let this championship go. They are going to fight it, at least for now, in the early parts of the season with everything they've got. They're not going to put all their resources into the 2026 car just yet. They're going to try their best to try and catch up to McLaren, but 5 races, can it be done? Well, let's see, because Verstappen was very close at the end behind Lando Norris. At the end of the day as well, it was a very topsy-turvy race, and if it wasn't for Alonso's safety car incident, I would very much wager that McLaren would have won that race, potentially by as much as 20-30 seconds, to be honest, which is ominous. And around a more normal track in China and a more normal race weekend in terms of the weather, this could get ugly for the rest of the field. McLaren could well top here, but let's have a look at what's been said here. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always. McLaren's obvious early dominance in 2025 can still be overcome within as few as 5 races. That is the claim of self-confessed optimist Marko, optimistic about everything apart from his young drivers. See my video about him, if you've not seen it already, of course. The powerful advisor at Red Bull. Marko, that is, not Hadjar. Although I'm sure he gives some good advice. He was speaking after the checkered flag in Melbourne, where despite a close finish in tricky conditions, Lando Norris became the first non-Verstappen World Championship leader in years. Indeed, it was since Spain 2022, I think was the last time, or he's held the lead ever since then in the championship, which is, of course, a record. Mercedes' George Russell was also on the podium and doubts the Woking-based team can be beaten. If you have a 6th, 10th lead at the beginning of the year, nobody overcomes that over the course of a year, he said. I don't know about that, George. I do think that can be overcome over a year. Heads are being scratched at Red Bull elsewhere about precisely how McLaren has managed to produce a car with far greater superiority, not only in getting heat in the tyres, but then resisting degradation. This is the greatest superiority I've ever seen in a racing car in this particular area, said Red Bull team boss Christian Horner. Normally, if you light the tyres up early, you pay for it in wear, but this McLaren is not like that. So that sounds like that's why Verstappen dropped off so much. It's not that McLaren got faster, it's that he got slower. Everybody got slower as the tyres started to wear out. That might be why he dropped off so dramatically after being passed by Oscar Piastri. That would explain it. Red Bull is suspicious of McLaren's wing flexibility, but Mercedes boss Toto Wolff insists it certainly has nothing to do with that. It's not pure performance, he added. They managed to really attack the tyre, but when we do that, we cook them. Marko is confident that Red Bull can still challenge in 2025 for the title. It's all about maximising in this period, he said. After 8 to 10 laps, we see our tyre degradation really start to happen, and then the McLaren is a second faster. But we hope that we are able to close the gap with them over a maximum of 5 races. We have some other problems, but tyre wear is the biggest problem. We know what we are working on, and we are working hard. In 3 to 5 races, we hopefully will solve it. As I said, our tyres need to warm up faster and then last longer. We have an upgrade in the pipeline, but it will take a little time. In the meantime, Marko says that Red Bull and Max Verstappen will keep the pressure on. Anything is possible when you keep the pressure on, he said, because it wasn't just Oscar Piastri who made mistakes. Norris almost spun too. They are 2 very strong drivers and the car is almost perfect, but this is the only one of the first race of 24 this season, and we haven't given up yet. Yeah, it is the first race, of course. There's still a long way to go. As Red Bull know very well, this could turn around very quickly in these kind of circumstances. It happened to them in what they hoped to be the opposite of what happened last year. Obviously, Red Bull were dominant at the start, and that advantage did kind of go away as the season went on. Came back a little bit towards the end, but yeah, it's still wagered they didn't have the fastest car at the end of the season. That's interesting about the tyres. I didn't realise that was it, and that does make sense given what we saw in Australia. But the bad news is, if that is the case, which I believe it is going off of that, I would say that they're going to have a hard time being beaten, McLaren in China, because the front left tyre, anybody who's played the F1 game will know very well, the front left tyre in Shanghai takes an absolute pounding around the lap. So many long right-hand corners absolutely get drawn out. The first couple corners are really bad for it, but there's also some pretty fast right-handers as well. Even the one leading on to the back straight, that's quite a tough one on the tyres too. And if McLaren have an advantage where they can push in the early laps and still keep the power and the performance in the tyres in the long term, we could well see a drop-off like we saw in Australia after 10, 15, 20 laps of the race. And they could do maybe a one stop where all the other guys are having to do two stops. And then you've got 20 seconds to make up in terms of pit lane lost time. And oh man, that's a lot. That's a lot. So we could well see a McLaren domination this weekend in China. Going off of that, even as a McLaren fan, I hope that's not the case. I want McLaren to win, obviously, but I want an entertaining race to watch, especially when I'm getting up at 6, 7 in the morning, something like that. So yeah, we'll see what happens, guys. But going off of that, it doesn't seem too great for the rest of the field, particularly Red Bull going off of that. But if if Verstappen can keep getting third places, if we can, do a reincarnation of Helmut, but instead of the two Mercedes guys at the time, it's the two McLaren guys, so no Pierre Ver or Ver. If we keep getting that, the gap will be big, but it won't be insurmountable. It'd be a tough one for him to overcome for sure, but as long as he can get them podiums in, I think that gap will be potentially backable. That's not a word, but you know what I mean. Able to be clawed back. That's the way to do it. But yeah, we'll see what happens, guys. What do you think about this weekend in China? Are McLaren going to stretch their legs even further? Are they going to get even further ahead of the field than what we saw in Australia? Or will the rest of the field claw it back? Will it be a closer race this weekend in China? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always, guys. And we'll have plenty of content as well in the run-up to the Chinese Grand Prix that I will link you guys. I'll probably put another video to do with what we're talking about in terms of the current pecking order as well at the end of this one if you're on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, go search up something else. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that you'll be able to watch and enjoy. Plenty of videos here on the F1Chronicle.com. We love it at the end of the day. So yeah, see you soon, guys. Have a fantastic week ahead, and let's hope for some great racing in Shanghai this weekend.